discussion you are about to endure, while based on true current events, is a fictional show with fictional characters. The writers, speakers, and voice performers herein do not necessarily agree nor disagree with any statements or claims made on the show.
Got your coffee?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to let it wake me up while you walk me through this.
All right. So it's time for another edition of Night Shift.
It's the night shift.
Night Shift.
With Courtney and Frank.
Yeah.
But today, Frank's going to tell me what's going on with this impeachment. Because I have not been paying attention as I should be.
All right, folks, we about to get into this deep dive. All right, so it's the year 2019, and the date is November
The 20th?
the 20th. Wow, it's that late in the month, folks. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and New
No,
Year.
it's the 19th. I was wrong.
Oh, okay. Hey,
Okay.
It's just a day.
It was, yeah,
You know, 6 hours from now.
We probably won't release this for a while. So. Who
But-
knows?
But anyway, in the political spectrum, we've entered into our second week of impeachment hearings with Adam Schiff and company of the House Democratic Party, Minority Chair Leader Nunes. And they've basically gone through a few private hearing depositions where some have criticized them of auditioning a few of the witnesses, and others have called this a hoax because, as some in the political spectrum may know, that Robert Mueller wrapped up in July the Russia collusion impeachment investigation, or just investigation, and really didn't drop any information that was bombshell enough to depose the president of his current sitting position. And so many in the Republican or right on the right believe that this Ukraine scandal is just that. It's just a scandal. It's nothing really to see. Whereas on the Democratic side, they believe that this is just yet another tick in the boxes of reasons why the president is unfit to serve.
Okay. Is that where we are right now?
That's exactly where we are right now. So, how familiar are you with the Russian collusion stuff?
I know that there were accusations made, and there was some type of an investigation that maybe didn't amount to something, or people thought was not done properly. But honestly, I'm so sorry. I'm the worst. I have not been paying attention to this stuff as much as I should be, mostly because it's all negative to me.
No, I agree. I think it's very divisive in the approach that it's being handled, and that many on both sides are not just sticking to the absolute facts. Like, it's more or less like, here's a line, a blurb, a witness who supports my line of thinking at the moment. As soon as that line of thinking isn't supported, it's like it fizzled out, and then it's like on to the next thing. Also, there is plenty of arguments that's being made that really, on both sides, there could be more done domestically than abroad. So I think one question that we have to ask ourselves, especially the youth, and I say the youth in comparison to like the older people who are like very politically minded, been in politics 20, 30 years plus.
Are you talking about boomers?
People that we would consider our parents, possibly grandparents. Yes.
Well, like, my grandmother is Gen Y or something. What is it? Gen Y, boomer, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, boomers and beyond. Because what are you, Gen X?
No, I'm a millennial.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, my brother would be Gen X because he's older. He's like almost 40.
Wow.
He's 10 years older.
Hey, I'm not too far. Not too far. But yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, Okay, boomers, let's go.
So I mean, like, because like a lot of them have a different political view than we do now. Like I think that terms like impeachment, like you said, like you haven't even really thought about what's happening in the political spectrum. In fact, arguably before this presidential cycle, I actually felt I was in the ballpark that politics didn't have anything to do with me at all. And outside of recent cultural perspectives, would have maintained the same argument, because when it comes to things like jobs and Medicare, I honestly, growing up, didn't see how
How that affected you?
how it affected me, because like the whole preaching point was like, if I go to school, I make good grades, and I choose to go, or I get accepted into an Ivy League school, that's based off my grades, not some governor.
Right.
They
Well,
never-
I think that there's a lot of intimate things that are controlled by the government, and particularly things like healthcare. And I mean, I vote in every presidential election since I was old enough to, and some local elections as well. I did not vote in the most recent local election because I wasn't up to date on anything, and I really was busy doing other stuff. But I would have liked to if I knew what all was on the table. So yeah, there is a lot that affects us very personally, and that's why I particularly think it's really important for people that have children to vote, because you're helping to shape the future of their lives. I mean, it's not even just about you anymore. It's about what type of world do I want my kid to grow up in, or whatever. And I think that it is important for people to think about things like that. Do I want my kid to have to go to college and have tons of debt like I did? Or do I want to build, a better society where they can thrive easier, or where things make a little bit different, a little bit better sense, I guess, in my mind. But
See, now I have to say that I kind of feel like, I feel like we should be taking a more active role. Like, I have this issue, say, Mr. Brown, Mrs. Thompson, our senators. Like, I don't want to turn my life decisions over to them. Like, I feel like I've been able to educate myself on so many things that why do I have to go through this person to determine my child's education, I suppose?
well, not necessarily their education, but just like the amount that government is involved in their life.
Yeah, I get.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
I'm
mean,
saying
there's
limited.
because there's a lot of people that believe that there should be more government involvement or less government involvement, or
Why do you think people want more government involvement?
because they want certain things to be regulated.
Like, why? I mean, what and why?
Like I think like well, if we're talking about education anyway, I think that there should be a cap on how much people can charge for education. I think that there should be a limit, because at this point, the cost of education has exponentially grown as compared to the amount that people are making after they graduate. So, I mean, there should be some control that says, hey, especially when it comes, I mean, private schools are one thing, but when it comes to like a state-funded college, because I went to a state-funded college and I have a ton of debt from it. And I think that if you're already a state school, you're not private, you're not elite, there's no reason that you should be overcharging students so ridiculously. I mean, it went from like, my dad did go to a private college university, and he paid half as much as I paid for my education. And that's just because that was, 30 something years ago.
Which is crazy how that changed. But I think what's interesting about that is that, like, when I look at I kind of like to go down to would the right word be the macro level? Mm-hmm. Is that the right word?
Macro is larger, so maybe the micro level.
Mm-hmm. So, like, if you have an idea, and I have an idea, Next person has an idea. 5 people have an idea, right? We all have some version of knowledge to execute that idea. I suppose, like, when I think about school from a small level, I think, like, it's just like when you think about freelancers who charge for work.
Yeah.
Like, how do you determine, like me showing you how to use a camera and its value? Because basically I'm turning into a competitor.
Right. And I mean, that's what we notice a lot, especially in our industry, that there's all these workshops and people have all of their master classes. And, some people have workshops that are like, $150 for a day. Some of them even offer free ones online. And then there's other people that are like, oh, come to my like 2-day thing and it's going to be like $500 to $600 and I'm going to teach you everything I know, whatever. I think that there's a few factors that go involved too, because I've been thinking about this myself. I don't know that I would, maybe at some point I might consider to offer coaching or teaching lessons in certain fields that I'm strong in. But what I take into consideration, even with the prices of what I charge to do those sorts of things, I base on what I see my competitors doing, what my clients are willing to pay. I mean, if I have clients that are willing to pay what I think might be more than what I would have normally come up with, then I'm going to base it off of what people are willing to pay. And it just goes back to like any type of business thing, right?
So should school be a business? Because that's basically what it is.
It is a business, yes.
Should it be, though?
But there are some schools, like public schools, that are non-profits. So if we think of it that way, if we think like a private school is a for-profit business, whereas I think that like a state college should be a non-profit sort of situation, which I don't know what they file. I don't know how it works. But I think that if you are not for-profit, then there should be certain things, like certain limitations on what you can charge essentially your customers. Your students become your customers, right? They're the people that you're taking the money from.
Right.
And I don't know, I just think there should be a limit, and especially to the fees, because there was a time when I had Hope Scholarship, which if you're not in Georgia or one of the other states that participate in this, it's if you get A's and B's, they're supposed to pay for your tuition. But in a lot of colleges, especially like the one I went to, your tuition is not even the biggest problem, because then you have all of these added fees that they could have built into the cost of tuition, right? But they make them added fees so that your scholarship does not cover them, and you have to pay out of pocket like a couple of extra grand each semester to cover these fees that you don't even have a choice as to whether or not you want to participate in covering them. I mean, if I understand certain technology fees and things that are associated with specific classes that you're taking, that makes sense to me, because I was my degree was in film, so we had to have access to certain equipment and certain levels of computers and things like that. But what if I don't want to pay an athletic fee? What if I don't want to support my college's football team? What if that's not an interest of mine? What if I don't want to pay for these other associated fees? And also, why are those not built into the cost of tuition so that my grants and other things can cover them?
No, I would think that's an argument of transparency. I tend to think of it backing up a bit. Like, I kind of feel like there should just be things are what they are. Like, we need doctors, right?
Yeah.
So why isn't like the doctor degree, like, getting your PhD in medicine, why isn't that like pretty much free? Like, if a person wants to devote themselves to become a doctor, I feel like that should be free, because that's benefiting society.
There are pathways, and there's ways that they are. My friend is pursuing her doctorate now, and she gets to work as a GRE on campus, and they pretty much, through working for the school, they pay or cover or waive the cost of her tuition. But that doesn't help her with housing while she's at school. That doesn't help her with, It might if she was lucky enough to get like an internship with a stipend or something. But
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I just feel like there shouldn't be like a path, or it should just be like, we need doctors, boom, done. We need scientists, boom, done. You know, like if that's what you want to devote your life to, researching and doing all that data, or collecting or generating that data, then it should be, you know, free. Like if you want to serve the community, I feel like jobs and education in those arenas should be like food, health, all of that should be understood.
and I think that's why they have a lot of programs where they have, once you get the job, they have jobs that offer like tuition reimbursement programs. So I think that there are avenues for that. Maybe
They need to be more transparent and government mandated. Like that, I would agree with, because you're serving community as a whole.
yeah.
But like, say a specialty like film or any type of art, unless it's an art and science type of deal, I would argue maybe that's when you start discussing out of pocket, because you're learning a trade and or skill, unless that trade and or skill goes to support infrastructure in some type of way. Because
Well-
those are things that are beneficial to our society.
In that sense, you have to think of where that money is coming from, because there are scholarships and grants for artistic purposes, but those are from private scholarship funds. Those are private people that believe in, hey, art is important to our life and our culture, and we want more of it, and so then they put out scholarships because of that.
Which is good. I'm just saying, like, things that are fundamental to, like, say for instance, learning how to make concrete or learning how to build buildings, architecture, or anything that facilitates making a better human experience in our environment. I would argue even going towards as we call it, greener things. I think, like, instead of having it set up to where you have to get this type of job, this type of thing, work at this type of place to get this type of stuff, like all of that, like I feel like what I'm trying to say is, like, if I were running a community or a nation, I would be vested in making sure that whatever it took to get my nation the best possible housing and medicine, technology even, that's where my interest would be. Like, the money would not be something that I'm fixated on. And I would like to think that there would be people who are in that group that think the same way, and whatever service we're offering to the consumers, that's where that money would come from. Because we'd be just, it'd be like a revolving door where, okay, sure, we figure out how to make TVs, people buy TVs, that money goes into further research into how to, generate some other technology of some sort.
Right. So then that's no longer like a private business. That's almost like shared assets. That's almost like socialism.
Is it like socialism? Because socialism doesn't work the way that I'm describing it. Because in socialism, you don't have a choice. I'm saying that people have the choice. I'm saying if you choose to become a doctor, yes, the government covers it, covers your life after that. If you're a doctor that's contributing to, like, general health care, but like if you're a specialist, like you want to go do plastic surgery, something like that, that's different. But if we're talking saving lives,
sometimes plastic surgery can save lives. It's not always aesthetic.
Yes, I realize that. But in general, when I feel like most times when we think of plastic surgery is for cosmetic purposes.
Yeah, or like,
but it is for reconstructive, reconstructive
like
surgery, yeah.
So I don't know. I guess.
But it's.
I'm trying to wrap it back to, like, what we started on.
Politics.
Okay.
And how, because like every microcosm of politics kind of, it like plays into to the same idea. Like, it's we all have like these varying ideas on how to achieve some goal. I'm still trying to figure out what that goal is, because if it's to provide a better human experience for the people of a given nation, specifically our nation, since we're here, I don't see like why it's so hard. Like, you want people to be educated.
Because that's not what it's about.
Well, let's talk about what it's about then.
Well, I mean, that's what you would want for it to be about. That's what we all kind of want politics to be about. But we have corruption, and we have people that
So why don't
are
we
greedy
get
and
'em
that
out
care
then?
more about other things. They care about power and, you know,
Just power. That's it.
and money and just
First you get the money.
controlling. And like, I think particularly things like how we were talking about earlier today, not on the show, but we were talking about, you know, separation of church and state and people pushing their religions on you. And I think that there's a lot of people that get into a position of power and they stop caring so much about the people and they care more about like their image or like pushing their own narrative, or I don't know. I haven't been watching politics in a while. I don't know what's going on in our current state. I miss Obama, and that's that.
Interesting. I don't know that I've grown fond of any body in politics, only because, like I said, I feel like, first of all, these are just regular people who happen to have pursued a career choice that has led them to be considered by other people to be powerful. But I feel like you, myself, are just as powerful as any of these people. In fact, it's kind of interesting, kind of bringing it up to now. A lot of times, like I've seen some politicians during the course of the discourse that we're having about whether or not the current president should be impeached, they say reach out to your constituents, and they're basically trying to, you know, control and gain control of the minds of people that's paying attention. But sometimes I feel like you said, pushing a narrative, obscuring certain facts, giving their own rendition of other facts. And so I feel like when you have a system that seems to be designed where people who pursue a certain type of power can pretty much forever be in power, I feel like that's a problem, while maintaining the illusion that they don't have absolute power when they kind of sort of do. Like when you look at some of the laws, it's kind of like, I just can't support such a system. At the same time, I do maintain that I personally like having the control of my own life and or destiny, in the sense of like, in my community, if I had the money and I wanted to build a community center, I shouldn't have to go through 18 offices to get zone laws cleared, to do all this stuff. If I have the money and I've done the proper consulting and it's to help the community, but instead, you know, you have to play this political game to talk about where you're going to put it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why is that type of thing so difficult to do?
Yeah, getting licenses and filing for things is what complicates. It complicates business startups in a way to almost acts as like a barrier to entry. It's almost what like helps to separate the elite from the not. Like, oh, well, if you can't figure out all this complicated licensing and whatever, what have you, then you can't be a rich business mogul like the rest of us or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, and I agree with that. I think that it should be a little bit. I mean, we have you seen where they like get mad at kids for having a lemonade stand and not having a license to sell lemonade? And it's like, this is something that, you know, I don't know if we saw it in movies or where it came from, but it was like a big thing in growing up. And I mean, even just having like a bake sale at school, and in my college, I had to experience some of that because we wanted to have a bake sale, and then we found out that, oh, you can't just use a table in the courtyard. You have to apply or reserve the space through it's all this like huge bureaucracy of like, okay, you have to get permission from this person, and you have to go up the scales of this person, that person, all to like hopefully make like $5 selling baked goods outside, you know, and it's just
then
so silly to me.
What's more to me, like, you attach an important cause to that, and it's like, you know, I'm trying to raise awareness for some disease my cousin may have, or you know, I care about a cause that I think is good for this particular community, and it's like, you know, you have people that's getting in the way of it, and it's like, you know, you have people that kind of have like a double tongue, if you will, or a forked tongue about it, because like on the one hand they're like, I care about the people and I want to see these people prosper, But then when it comes down to actual people on the ground trying to make things happen in their communities, like there's no expense spared at stopping them from doing something good. And it's kind of like that's the reason why I have a hard time supporting it. Going back to something that you said is kind of like, and I've received flack for this because I personally just feel like these people, and I suppose I'm more of a, we talked about this before, I'm more of a hippie in that way. The man, the man's trying to keep you down. But like,
Well, it's Marxism, essentially.
hippieism is Marxism?
No, what you're saying, the man trying to keep you
Oh,
down.
well, yeah, I did. That's not how I think of Marxism. But no, Marxism. I'm sorry.
Marxism. Let's come up with that one next.
But no, like, you know, maybe I was gonna say, but like, what did you say? Before this whole Marxism, yeah, like,
Us against the people. I mean, them, the man against the people.
oh well, voting. That's what I was gonna say. So, I kind of feel like people who run for office should do more to get our votes. I feel like they don't do enough. Not one person. It's like you see them on the campaign trail, and then they're gone. You know, it's always interesting to me. Like even last year with Stacey Abrams and the like, even what's his Brian Kemp, is it? Like I never seen these people on the ground except when it's time to run. Like I feel like we should only be electing people.
Only thing I heard about Brian Kemp was he had some scandals about
election
voting.
fraud. Yeah.
And then he probably did exactly the same thing, but we're not gonna have to talk about that.
See, but you know what's interesting though is that like this whole election fraud thing has been going on for the longest time, and when you really look at it, both sides, Republican and Democrat, have done it since voting has been a thing. I mean, I think it happens
That sucks.
in school, like when people are running for class president. I mean, you have your phrases, your favorites, and then you try to fix the ballot boxes to match it. I've actually seen video where conservatives show like they have their phone, and I don't know if it's legal to do this, but somehow they get the video and they're pressing on the screen for a certain candidate, and it auto switches to something else.
I've seen that.
So-
But what I was talking about, what I was referring to is in
The voter registration thing.
no, there were some issues in inner cities, like kind of like lower class neighborhoods where their polling places suddenly just didn't happen to have the power cords for the voting machines.
Oh wow.
And so the people were lined up for hours outside the door trying to get in and vote. And, you have to go to a specific area that you're designated to vote at. And so they weren't allowed to go to, like, another place to cast their vote because it's based on their address. And I did see the woman in front of me, actually, when I went to go vote, had an issue where the address on her ID did not match the address that she was registered with, which actually is not even a requirement. I looked it up. You don't have to have the same address on your ID as long as you registered with your most current address. It doesn't have to be on your ID. You know why? Because I showed her my passport, which has no address on it at all, and I was able to go.
Well, the passport is supposed to be like a more official, because you're supposed to have to go through more to get a passport.
Yeah,
like
but I don't think your address is on it.
Well, no, I'm just saying,
not
like,
on it.
as a document, though, the passport is revered as a higher.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, when you go to vote, if they try to turn you away because your ID address, the address on it doesn't match, that's not right. That you're not supposed to be able to be turned away for that.
The only thing I do have to say about that is, as far as like, to me, that doesn't match up. This is just like, in my mind, it doesn't make sense, because when I've had tickets, that's the first thing that officers ask is where you currently live, match on your license. So to me,
But they ask that to know where to send the paperwork. It's not.
So I'm saying if that's the case, then to me it's not unreasonable to require that your voting address and your license address. I'm saying
But it's not a
unreasonable.
thing. That's what I'm saying. Is they pretend that it's a thing. It's not a thing. It's not part of the requirements. You just had to have registered at your current address. They only check the ID to make sure that you are the person that it says that you are. There's no reason that they should be even looking at the address on your ID. But that's something that they were turning people away for, which they were not supposed to do.
I mean, it's what I'm saying is a little more personal opinion. I guess I could see why you would want someone, because if you're talking about winning districts,
But I'm just saying it's not written in the requirements.
I get it.
They're doing it for no reason.
I get it.
So whether
I'm
it's your
like,
personal opinion or not,
Yeah.
it's they're doing something for no reason, just to have some other reason to turn people away from voting. It's not a legal thing. Like if you look up the legal doctrine that says what you need to go and vote on like Georgia's website or something, it does not say that.
currently.
Yeah, it doesn't have to
Because
match it.
I-
You just have to be registered at your most recent address.
I do recall that during that particular news cycle with that, allegedly, like one of the pushes that Stacey had against Kemp was that he changed the law to reflect basically that they had to match or something along those lines, because she was also pushing for paper registrations or something like that. And so that's why I'm like, according to what I know, it's one, they do have to match, but two, like it just makes sense. But then I guess it depends on your position on, you know, what you believe about voter fraud and all of that.
Well, it's just supposed to be the name and the birthday and all of that stuff, but I don't update my thing every time I move, because when I went and got my license last, I paid to have it for like 10 years or something, and if I move in that 10 years, I'm not going to pay another whatever 35 or whatever dollars just to have a new one.
Why not?
My car is registered under my correct address, but I'm not going to go just to get my driver's license to say a different thing. It just seems unnecessary to me.
Well, like I said, I mean, well, hopefully no one gets tickets, but I mean, if unfortunately you do get a ticket and they send it to the wrong address and then you get pulled over again and then they say you have a warrant for your arrest, unfortunately, and then you say, oh, I didn't get the ticket mailed to me.
But my car is registered under my address. That's what I'm saying.
So you feel
My
like
driver's license doesn't matter.
that's what you think.
Yeah, why would they go? I would just
why-
tell them if they asked me, hey, are you at this address? I would say, no, I'm at the address on my vehicle registration, because they're looking at all the documents, you know?
No, not all the time. You'll be interesting. A lot of times it depends on who gets this information, because I have pretty good experience with, you know, one department making a decision that does not reflect or have anything to do with another department. For sure. That's just how they
if
work.
they're sending it to my old house, I'm not getting it. So.
Yeah, don't get pulled over. Please don't get pulled over.
No, I mean, I've had cops try to tell me like, oh, you need to get it changed, whatever, and I'm like, well, I don't know how long I'm going to stay at this residence, so I'm not going to change it. And when you pull me over and ask me for my address, I will gladly tell you my proper address. So.
Just don't get the little red light camera thing, because that's how
Oh.
they get you sometimes.
No, because they get it from my car.
No, well, I mean, now again, another
They get it
person-
from your car registration,
Another-
because the license plate on the back of
Yeah.
your car has nothing to do with your driver's license.
Oh, well, I've
That's your
actually,
vehicle registration.
someone's told a story about how they actually got in a little bit of trouble. Fortunately for them, they knew the judge though, but they got in trouble because the ticket or whatever got sent to another place than where it was supposed to go, even though it was the car that they were in.
I don't know. I don't get how that's my fault.
Because you didn't update your address.
No, not on my driver's license, but that's not related to my car. My car is through my vehicle registration. The only address they can pull up is the one that my vehicle is registered under.
But you said if you moved any time in them years and you don't update.
I would update my vehicle registration
okay.
because I have to every year.
Oh, okay.
I don't have to change anything on my driver's license ever, unless it expires.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
That's a
It's
weird
just-
gamble. That's a terrible, terrible gamble in my opinion.
No one looks at my driver's license
That's
except for the
good.
person checking my ID at the club.
Well, that's good. That's good. I can't.
Like, I don't understand how else would they have gotten that information.
Recently, I have been good, but I definitely done had a few stops.
Yeah.
So they be.
And I get tickets mailed to my house. Trust me, I just got a parking ticket.
Wow.
Well, I guess that's not mailed to my house. It was on my car.
That's so wild. Stop getting tickets.
I got a parking ticket outside of my own house, okay? And listen, I have lived here for 2.5 years. I have parked in the same spot every day because what happens is I work night shift. That's why this is called night shift. I get home from work at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's asleep. Their cars are all parked outside. And the only spot open is right next to the crosswalk. So I got a ticket for being within 10 feet of a crosswalk.
Wow.
Because there was nowhere else on the street to park. I would have had to park like a whole block away. All right, so thanks for listening. This has been Night Shift with Courtney Sage.
And Frank Hughes.
All right, we'll see y'all later.